Political campaigns across the country have been forced to get creative to connect with voters during the pandemic. Election Day is less than 6 months away. Energy that once went into field organizing is now being spent figuring out how to engage with people online. Sarah Ewall-Wice and LaCrai Mitchell have been looking at how political organizers are adapting to life under lockdown. Sarah is an associate producer for the CBS News political unit, and LaCrai is a CBS News campaign reporter. Welcome to you both. It is so wonderful to talk to you again. LaCrai, let me start with you. What does digital organizing during the pandemic actually look like?
It looks like a lot of transitioning from your normal day-to-day and in-person interactions to digital platforms. So because we have had to stay inside and because health experts continue to advise that we stay away from large groups and gatherings, that has eliminated the ability to do door knocking and canvassing and onboarding volunteers in your field office. And so what you've seen is different digital teams have had to transfer those efforts online now. So now people use Zoom to talk in big groups and do these onboardings to teach different volunteers how to phone bank using different PowerPoint slides and that sort of deal. You see people getting on digital platforms to have one-on-one coffee meetings like they would in person, but now it's all virtual. And I had a chance to attend a few virtual trainings for the DNC, the RNC, and the National Democratic Training Committee. And what you find on these calls is you can have anywhere from 100 to 300 participants, and they're all on at the same time. You see the chat bubble continuing to blink where people are asking questions, where they're putting in their location from where they're tuning in from, and they're giving suggestions on different things that they've been doing during this time. Cook-offs with candidates for down ballot candidates, and getting really creative with the digital space using Facebook Messenger and social media. I think the biggest takeaway though was from every conversation, they kept telling me that at the end of the day, organizing is about relationship building. And so whether you're doing that in person or you're doing that online with the aid of a digital platform, that is still the crux of organizing even today, even amid the coronavirus outbreak, that you're making connections with voters that stick so that even when all of this does begin to open up, that you've already put those relationships in place.
So interesting to hear about that. Sarah, let me ask you, a number of counties have held virtual conventions. What has turnout been like?
Well, I've actually been talking to a number of different state parties, and turnout, because people are at home and because everything has moved online for these types of events, are actually up. People are engaged. A lot of these different states are doing them through Zoom. They're also doing them through video chat and email. I spoke to the chairman of the Democratic Party in North Carolina, and it was the first time that they had to move all of their county conventions, more than 90 conventions across the state, to the digital space. And what he was telling me was they got more than 9,600 people to participate. He said it was more organized than it had ever been before, and it was more focused than it had ever been before because they had to centralize all of it. In the past, they've let different counties do their conventions in different ways, but because it all had to be in this new reality where it's online, they had to provide a lot more structure for how that was happening. At the same time as Democrats are holding these conventions across the country in different counties and then at the state level, Republicans have also had to shift all of their county conventions and their assemblies online. I was speaking to an official in Colorado, and he was saying how they went county by county and let different counties do what they needed to make sure those were conducted as the coronavirus was spreading. And so a lot of them also moved those to Zoom. A lot of them also moved it to doing email conventions, and some did their caucuses through drive-through caucusing. So they're being creative in different ways, but they feel because that they are going to the voters rather than voters coming to them, people are becoming more engaged and are maintaining engagement throughout this entire process. They're also reaching more people because it's happening in rural areas and it's happening in urban areas, but all online.
Yeah, and LaCrai, let me ask you, explain how, in some areas, the pandemic has actually created an opportunity for better engagement with some voters.
I think it's happened through a couple of different ways. For one, you have a lot more people inside, a lot more people working from the comfort of their homes. And so I had the Florida Republican Party chair, Joe Gruters, tell me that because everyone's inside and looking for things to do in some instance, you have a captive audience because everyone is tuning in to hear something or learn something, to do something different than just sit around. So that's one way. And the other, I would say, is that as Sarah began to talk about, we also spoke with the Iowa Republican Party communications director who was telling us that this has allowed them to specifically have better outreach with rural voters. And I think it's because think about how normally people are having to come to a field office or come to one location to gather for these sort of meetings and trainings. Now they can do it from their computer and from the comfort of their home. So you don't have to factor in now having to pick up kids or having to get off of work at a certain time to get to these meetings, or if they're held in the middle of the day trying to sneak on or sneak to a meeting during your lunch break. All of that has been eliminated now because in a lot of cases, people are working and trying to get engaged from home. So that has allowed for a more captive audience and more participation in some cases.
Well, finally, Sarah, before the pandemic, the Texas Democratic Party was on a mission to turn their state blue. They were heavily focused on field organizers and canvassers. Do they still think they can flip the state now that door knocking is not an option?
They're very confident in Texas, the Democratic Party that is. It's interesting because I spoke to the Democratic Party right after their primary, which was in the beginning of March. And at that time, people were still going about their business before the coronavirus put everyone at home. So when I spoke to them, they were talking about how they're going to have the largest grassroots organizing effort in their state party history, perhaps in Texas history. They wanted 1,000 people on the ground across the entire state of Texas out organizing and turning the state from red to blue. I actually followed up with them more recently to find out how things had changed because of the coronavirus, and they said they are still targeting 1,000 people and the largest grassroots organizing effort in their state party history. Of course, everything has since shifted online, and because of that, they've had to become creative with some of their programming. In late March, they rolled out 3 programs to help them organize online. They included Connect Texas, which was an online hub to share ideas and creative ways to engage voters. They organized a Connect 254 program, which is about the counties in the state, 254 counties, and it's a series of calls to connect voters across the state. Of course, not everyone has good internet connections, so they're trying to make sure they reach rural voters as well through these calls. They also had a community captains program, which they recruited over 500 people for, to continue to make sure people are being engaged and being able to have the resources that they need in their area of the state. Then, moving forward, in April, they also realized they had to start engaging people to register to vote, and that is something that Texas does not have online voter registration. So they launched a registertexas.com website, which allows people to go online, fill out their information, and then the party itself will send the packet with the pre-filled out forms to the voters. So then all they have to do is then send it in the mail with prepaid postage already involved. So it's how they're going about getting people registered when they don't have an online state system to register voters in this coronavirus. And they're looking at other ways to continue staying engaged moving forward. Everyone I have spoken to so far has said they're not sure what it will mean going door to door later in the year. They're still hesitant to talk about that. They're focused right now on the digital side of things and the virtual side of things because we just don't know what'll happen.
Right, it's hard to imagine planning for anything too far out. I do have one more, LaCrai. President Trump and his reelection campaign have relied a lot on the art of digital engagement. How is Joe Biden's campaign trying to compete?
You have seen where the RNC told us for this story that they have had 20 million voter contacts and hosted over 3,900 Trump victory leadership trainings. And so that is the question that a lot of people have. How does the Biden campaign begin to compete? Well, at the beginning of April, you saw that the DNC put out a memo after Biden became the presumptive nominee, essentially saying that all hands were going to be on deck and they were going to help the Biden campaign scale up as quickly as possible. And that included, in that memo, they mentioned how in just a few weeks at the time, they'd had 7,000 individual signups for their digital organizing 101 trainings. And they've also been partnering with different state parties, the DNC that is, like Florida and Georgia, to send out millions of text messages to voters to make sure that they know how to vote by mail, that they know different information. And so the DNC has really come along and said that they're going to help this campaign as much as they can. And on the campaign side, they too have been hosting their own digital events. I attended Biden Soul Saturday virtual action day a couple weeks ago, where you had supporters get together and talk to local FedEx workers and first responders in the Charlotte area about how the COVID-19 outbreak had been impacting them directly. You also have seen the campaign host different events like letter writing and making signs for first responders to encourage them during this time and to thank them, more importantly, for the work that they've been doing. So the Biden campaign has helped to put all of that together digitally. And also, just this week, you'll see where they're going to be in Florida tomorrow, and he's putting together a roundtable with African-American leaders, and it's going to be a virtual event out of here in the state. And so I think what you see all around is the Biden campaign is going to continue to put up a front like everyone else to try to build these relationships.
It is a different world we are living in, including in the campaign world here. LaCrai Mitchell, Sarah Ewall-Wice, so great to see you both. Thank you very much.
Thank you.